Zolder in Belgium will once more play host for the final round of the 2019 NASCAR Whelen Euro Series on the 5th and the 6th of October. In 2018, the racing was intense at the finals, but who's going to grab the wins in 2019? With so many quick rookies in Elite 2 this season, who is going to come out on top? And in Elite 1, could Alan Day make NASCAR history and secure 3 back-to-back titles? It's the finals, it's Zolder, it's double championship points. Who'll be celebrating and heading towards victory lane, and who will be crowned the champion? Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome along to Circuit Zolder for the 2019 finals of the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series. We're here at Belgium's first purpose-built circuit in this Limburg area of Belgium, where racing's been going on since the 1950s. The original, fairly primitive circuit was 1.56 miles, but that, even at the time, was a considerable step up from the street races that had existed before. But the circuit was redesigned under the ideas of John Hugenholtz Sr., who'd already designed the Suzuka circuit in Japan, and construction started in 1962 and opened in 1963. Let's have a look around the track. There are 10 key parts to this circuit, albeit there are 16 turns. The first races ever for the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series were in 2015 around this 4-kilometre or 2.5-mile circuit. And last year's winner in Elite 1 was Alan Day. We have got plenty to look forward to over the course of the race today for the Elite 1 division, which is lining up there on the grid. And, of course, we will see Elite 2 out as well later on today. So in what are ideal conditions, dry conditions, it was wet in free practice and in qualifying yesterday, and what better person to show us around a lap than somebody who is competing at his home NASCAR Grand Prix this weekend. Belgian driver Stinis Longines, a former Elite 2 champion, showed us around a lap.
Welcome everybody in Zolder. We are here for the final race of the Euro NASCAR season. We come here in the first corner. It's a tricky corner, especially now in the rain. We take it in third gear. It's really slippery because normally it's a fast corner, so there is a lot of rubber on the track. Here we come in the second corner. Also here in the rain we stay outside. You see the car is sliding a lot. Now we accelerate to third gear. Normally when it's dry you just hit the limiter on the end of this corner. Normally it's flat. Here we stay in third, take a lot of speed. Also now it's slippery, but normally it's a really fast corner with no zone to go up the track. Now we brake to the first chicane. It's a really important braking zone because when you brake too late you have no margin to cut the track. We take this corner in second gear. We go over the hill. Also this one, it's very important to brake straight because otherwise you lock the tire and your race is already gone. Here we are in the Villeneuve chicane, so yeah, it's a special track. The second corner now it's really slippery because of the rubber on track. Here we come in one of the last and most difficult corners. We take it in dry. We take it in first gear. Now it's in second because of the rain. Now we go on the straight, the last straight, to go in the Jackie chicane. We go to third, then to fourth. Here we go back to second gear when it's dry, and also now we try to cut off a lot in the chicane, turn the car and go as quick as possible on throttle. Now we are already one lap further, so this was Stinis, my home track, Zolder.
So there we go, Stinis Longines at his home NASCAR Grand Prix this weekend. Well, on the build-up to the race, I've got a very important guest joins me in the commentary box for the moment. The Senior Vice President and Chief International Officer for NASCAR, Gene Stefanishin is alongside me briefly in the commentary box. Gene, wonderful to have you here with us for the finals at Belgium, at Circuit Zolder. Some very important news was announced yesterday. The relationship between the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series continues, and NASCAR have committed to another 10 years.
Yes, that's right. It's thanks for having me here. It's a pleasure to be here in Zolder for the finals. I'm looking forward to some exciting racing. And as you stated, we have been in Europe for many years, and we've extended the term of the contract for another 10 years. Europe's a very important market for us, and we're looking to continue to expand and grow this market. And I think we've got a lot of very good drivers and sponsors and wonderful partners we're working here, so we look forward to it.
It's nice that we become part of that NASCAR family. Whelen also supporting series on this and on your side of the Atlantic. NASCAR as a group continues to grow as well with the acquisition of ARCA recently as well. So, it's a very strong, almost sort of global family we've created now.
Yes, and I would say we're as far as international, as you know, our roots are in the U.S. We've expanded to Europe. We're in Mexico. We're in Canada, and we're really beginning to push in other international markets, and we're working in other parts of the world too. So hopefully we'll hear a few more announcements going forward here, but we continue to push forward with the NASCAR brand and with all the partners we have in various parts of the world.
And also, I know a lot of our European drivers down there on the grid, and includes Americans as well over the course of this weekend. Are also hugely excited about other possibilities that exist for them as they head through the NASCAR family as well. You look at the driver exchange program, you look at the drive for diversity, all of the key components are in place, aren't they?
Yes, for us it's always been very important to be a national sport and try to grow the drivers locally. We look for local heroes. And whether it's in Europe, Canada, or Mexico, and hopefully some of those drivers will make it into the big show in the U.S. For example, Daniel Suarez came out of there, Mexico. So we do really like to develop the drivers in the markets in which we race.
And we know one of them will be heading over to one of your other series in December, because whoever at the end of this weekend is crowned the Elite One champion will be heading to Mexico City for the final championship round of the Mexican series.
Yes, for the driver exchange. There's double points weekend. There's a lot of points on the table here, so it's going to be interesting to see who wins Elite One and Elite Two.
You're looking forward to it?
I certainly am, yes.
So thank you to Gene for joining us in the commentary box. Enjoy the racing, and hopefully we can crown some very worthy and capable champions later on this weekend.
Appreciate the time, and well done, and good luck with the race today.
Thank you very much indeed. So there we go. Apologies that it was rather brief there. That was Gene Stefanishin, who, as we say, is the Senior Vice President and Chief International Officer for NASCAR. We're delighted to have both himself and Jimmy Small, who is the International Business Operations gentleman within NASCAR, who's come to join us. So Gene has left the commentary box, which now allows me to introduce the driver that will join me for this first Elite One race of the weekend. Welcome along, Myatt Snyder.
Hey guys, I am happy to be here. I figured might as well continue on the Snyder heritage of doing commentary on race cars. So coming to you live from Belgium, and we are at Circuit Zolder, and we are going to see some damp track racing, although it is getting a bit drier than it was earlier today.
It's certainly drier than it was in qualifying. It is without question drier than it was in free practice yesterday. You were out there in what were pretty awful conditions for free practice yesterday.
Yeah, we had a pretty significant downpour. Like at one point I had to pull in because my windshield was so fogged up that I couldn't see where I was going. So in those conditions you have to be very, very careful, and in there it's no longer the driver who is the most aggressive and the guy who hustles the car the hardest. It's the driver who's smoothest who comes out on top and runs the fastest lap time. So it was very interesting to see how these cars ran in a rainy condition, because I'd only run in the rain on an oval with these things, which is not the thing that I expected to do first.
Yeah, you did our onboard lap around Venray, didn't you, in the wet on an oval? Yeah.
Yeah, that was a blast. I think I hopefully proved to NASCAR that we can run ovals in the rain. Maybe not like a Kansas or a Michigan where it's a really big racetrack, but maybe try Martinsville in the rain.
Just while we sort of we'll come back to sort of other American circuits in a moment. Your first season, you're a rookie, one of many in the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series. High and low points of the season for you, and it probably be fair to say that both the high point and the low point came at the same race meeting at Valencia.
Yeah, that was a fun one. I guess I got my first taste of FIA racing there because in my eyes it was a racing incident, but to the steward's eyes it was my fault for causing a wreck. So just a difference of opinion there. Depends on where you're raised. Of course, I was raised in the United States where you settle it out on the racetrack and then you talk amongst yourselves afterwards, and then that's that. If you sort it out, fine. If you don't, then you sort it out at the racetrack next week. So, so it's just a difference of opinions, but it's we still have some good racing here over the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series.
And I think that that's what the drivers sort of understand. It is a different market. And I think we've just been speaking to Gene Stefanician from NASCAR. He understands that European market is subtly different as well. How does it compare though to your experience on the other side of the Atlantic, where we've seen you racing in the likes of the Gander Outdoors Camping Truck Series?
Yeah, well, the biggest difference here is, of course, is that we run mostly road courses. In the Truck Series, we only won one road course, and everything else is ovals of some sort. So here, it's all road courses and one oval, so almost perplexingly opposite. But yeah, I mean, it's very different here over in the European market. A lot more people seem to be generally interested in motorsports as a whole, and I love to see that over here. People seem to have a big, huge respect of sports in general, and they seem to include motorsports as a sport. And in the States, you get a lot of people who say, "Oh, well, it's just like driving a car on the highway," or it's easy to do racing, which of course we both know it's not.
In your camping truck, we've seen some great results from you already this year. You've not done many, but you've done a few races this year and some good results. We were chatting yesterday, and you were telling me you have previously qualified your car in the wet, the Camping Truck Series car, and also a small Legends car. You've raced in the wet as well, so your wet experience is probably far less than many of your European compatriots. Yeah,
I guess my racing in the rain experience is a lot lower than these guys who do it quite frequently. It was very interesting, actually, because I hadn't done rain racing at all for the longest time. Prior to last year when I ran Mosport, we ran the trucks there. I qualified in the rain, qualified at first in the first round and then third in the second round, and that was a big chip on our shoulder for us because we had kind of struggled all day, and then the rain kind of set an equalizer on the field. So, but prior to that, I was maybe 15 or 16 when I had last run on the rain, and that was in a Legends car in Charlotte. So quite a long way from home for doing the rain racing now. So it's. But I do enjoy rain racing. It's a lot of fun, especially here with these big heavy stock cars.
So we'll catch up a bit more with Myatt and chat about his season as the race wears on. And what we will now concentrate on is what's going on in Elite One. The driver that qualified on pole position, Tomo Ferrando, is a former Elite 2 champion, and it is his first pole position in the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series. It is his first pole position in the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series, and he will be hugely pleased with that. He's has yet to take a win in the Elite 1 division. There is only one driver that has previously scored a victory in the Elite 1 NASCAR Whelen Euro Series, who stepped up from Elite 2, and that is Gianmarco Ercoli, who also joins us on the grid. He was just a teenager when he had his first ever race as well. That came at Bowman Gray. He was, I think 14 years of age when he had his first ever car race, Tomo Ferrando. So we look forward to seeing how he might be able to get on in this one. He sits there on the front row of the grid. In terms of the championship, though, Myatt, coming into this weekend, the Elite 1 Championship being led by Loris Hazemans, he only qualified 6th quickest. He got through to Super Pole, but it was an unusual qualifying session because it was, for the main qualifying session, it was wet, and then as we got towards Super Pole, it got to the stage where slick tyres were the way to go. Loris originally went out on wets. There was a red flag. He came in, changed to slicks, and still didn't quite hook the car up, I don't think.
Well, yeah. One thing that I noticed in the qualifying session is that, especially in the Super Pole, where you only have 5 minutes, which basically, if you include your outlap, where you're getting around to the start-finish line, it's pretty hard to heat up your tires. So with these guys, especially having such a damp track, they probably had struggles heating up their tires, especially if it was slicks, especially for Hazemans, because he probably changed those tires. They didn't have the heat in them from running that out lap. So he probably struggled a little bit. But, it's starting to dry up. Heismans has been really good all year, and I think he'll be able to get to the front.
You look at your team that you race for. You race for Racing Engineering, the Spanish team. You've got the number 88 Ford, Romain Enieta, sitting there on what is the 5th position on the grid. So not a bad qualifying session for him, but for the 48 of Ander Villarino, 3 times a champion, the most successful drive we've had in the Elite 1 division, only 19th quickest. Was there any sort of feedback from Ander after the Super Pole session and the qualifying sessions?
Well, I think he just suffered more or less from the same problem that Heismans had when he couldn't get his tires warmed up enough, and I suffered the same thing too. When I qualified my car, either I didn't get enough heat in the tires or something was up with the tires themselves. We both just couldn't seem to get the grip that we needed. He told me that he was watching people drive away from him while he was sliding all over the track. So probably just couldn't get enough heat in the tires, and that's very key here. Heat is grip, so especially in a wet condition. So it's unfortunate, but I think the car is definitely good enough to be top 7 in Elite 1, maybe top 5 in Elite 2, and we'll see how it ends up.
See what he can do in Elite 1 under Villarino, because remember, it's not an extra 4 points for the driver that gains the most places starting position to finishing position. It's finals, so it's 8 extra points up for grabs. I suppose the other key thing is that even for drivers that are maybe used to Zolder, we've not had any wet races this year, so it's a while since we've had a wet race. We've got a new spring and a new damper on the car for this year, and the general general tyre coming in as the control tyre manufacturer. So there's a range of different things that drivers have had to cope with, even the more experienced ones, for the very first time in the wet in that qualifying session.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with a brand new tire, that changes up everything, because you kind of build your setups around the race tires, because it doesn't matter how good or how well you calculate out a setup to be. If the tires can't put it down, then it basically is useless. So a lot of the best teams have adjusted well to these changes. So we'll see some of the better teams here who have adjusted better. They'll be running up front.
We're about 2.5 minutes until we hear the national anthems come in, so all of the drivers and the teams all out there ready to observe what will be, of course, the American, followed by the Belgian national anthem, and then from there the tension really starts to build. Drivers always say you can't win the championship in the regular season, but you can certainly lose it when you get to the playoffs. 80 points up for grabs in this one, and as we saw from a car that will start on the outside of the second row of the grid, number 11 Stinis Longin, who did the onboard lap with us, he was leading the championship going to Hockenheim, had an awful weekend, and he arrives here for the finals lying third. He lost a raft of points, didn't he?
Yeah, that's unfortunate for him, but he is starting ahead of Loris Heismans, so he does have a little bit better of a spot, and it'll be up to him to make sure that Heismans stays behind him, and that's his goal the whole day, is to make sure that black, red, white number 50 car is in his rearview mirror the whole day.
I suppose the other good thing for Stinis Longin is that he's also the best part of 6 places further up the grid than Nicola Rocca, his teammate in PK Car Sport, but Nicola Rocca comes into this weekend lying second in the championship standing. So Loris Heismans leads, he's on 425, Nicola Rocca is second on 404, and third is Stinis Longin, who is on 354. So there's still plenty up for grabs in this one, and as we look towards the grid, we're about a minute away now from the national anthems. We'll wait until the grid is cleared of everybody before we then guide you through the full grid, because the camera position that we've got there is what will show us the cars on the grid, and whilst there are personnel still there, then we probably just need to make sure that we've got a bit more visibility of the cars before we guide you through the grid. But everybody is ready. It's an exciting time, Myatt, as we head towards the finals.
One thing I also we didn't mention here is that Stinis Longin, he was the fastest guy in the rain yesterday in first practice. So he's been really good all weekend. So if there are still some damp spots in the track, look for him to be one of the fastest guys, if not the fastest guy through there. So he knows what he's doing in the rain.
He certainly does. He knows what he's doing in the rain. He knows what he's doing around this circuit, of course, because it is his home NASCAR Grand Prix, and he races for a Belgian team as well. So hopefully all of all of the pieces are in place for him to hoist himself back up into championship contention. Hasn't had a win in the Elite 1 division, but so far this year has had 6 second places. He really has been Mr. Consistency, other than that difficult weekend at Hockenheim just 2 weekends ago. So drivers are ready. I think we are almost ready to hand downstairs for the national anthems.
NASCAR Finals with NASCAR Whelen Euro Series, the final round here of the
So the American national anthem will now be followed by the Belgian national anthem. So the build-up to the race continues for round 12 of the 2019 NASCAR Whelen Euro Series. We're about 6 minutes away from the Grand Marshal ushering those immortal words. The track is now being cleared, so let's just guide you through the grid for this 11th round of the championship. Pole position is on the right-hand side of your screen, because that gives the inside line for the first corner. It is number 27, Tomo Ferrando, just about to put on the balaclava and the crash helmet, that sits there on pole position for Cal Racing at the wheel of his Ford. And alongside is number 3 for RTV Competition. It's the Chevy in the hands of 3 times the runner-up in this championship, Fred Gabillon. Row 2 of the grid, returning to the site of his win a couple of seasons ago. It is the Belgian driver for the Belgian team, number 78, the Brax Racing Ford of Mark Goossens, lines up alongside number 11, which is the PK Car Sport Chevy of Stenish Longines. The third row of the grid, it's car number 88. That's the red car with the yellow flashes. Races for the team that is the same team as the man to my left-hand side. The Racing Engineering Ford Mustang of Romain Iniesta sits there on row number 3, and alongside him is number 50, the championship leader, the black car. You can see the Dutch national flag stripes down the centre of it. Hendricks Motorsport Ford, number 50 of Loris Hazemans. On to row number 4, it's the Racers Motorsport Ford Mustang, number 9 of Gianmarco Ercoli, alongside former race winner here, albeit in Elite 2 a couple of seasons ago, number 99 for Dexwet DF1 Racing, the Chevrolet Camaro of Guillaume de Flandre. Row 5 of the grid, it's the reigning Elite 2 champion, number 36, the second of the 2 RDV competition Chevys, Ulysse Delso, alongside the sole British driver represented on the grid this weekend. Number 90 is Alex Sedgwick, and he sits on the outside of that 5th row. Row 6 of the grid, second in the championship, number 24, the second of the 2 PK Car Sport cars, the Chevy of Nicola Rocca, alongside the reigning champion, the back-to-back champion, number 54, the Israeli for Cal Racing, Alan Day. The 7th row of the grid, 98, Dylan Deardala, out again at the wheel of the PK Car Sport Ford, as it is for him, the Belgian driver, and alongside him it is number 70, the Team Bleekie-Molen Ford of Sebastian Bleekie-Molen. Row 8 of the grid, number 77, Alexander Graf, and 33, back-to-back champion in 09 and 2010, Luca Lasserre. The 9th row of the grid, 23, Henry Toomala, and number 7, Martin Dubeck. Row 10 is 48, your car, Myatt Snyder, in the hands of Ander Villarino for this race, alongside car number 32, Jacques Villeneuve. Fair to say, the first ever visit to Zolder for Jacques Villeneuve. He was just 11 years of age when, sadly, on the 8th of May 1982, his father, Gilles, was killed at this circuit. He wasn't here that day. It is his first ever visit. We wish him well in this race. Row 11 of the grid, number 12, Francisco Sini, and 31, Mauro Trioni. Row 12 is number 2, Kenko Miura, and 46, Salvador Tinio Arroyo. And at the back of the grid, at the wheel of his Racers Motorsport Chevy, is car number 8, which is Dario Carzo. So that gives you the full grid. The tension begins to build. Important race ahead, Myatt.
Yeah, you know what I noticed is that there is a lot of firepower at the back of the field. Like, outside of the top 10, you've got Nicola Rocca, Alan Day, Lucas Lasserre, Ander Villarino, Jacques Villeneuve. You've got a lot of guys who are really fast, so they either must have just had a bit of an issue in Superpole, or getting to Superpole, they didn't get enough heat in their tires. Look for those guys to be carving their way through the field and passing a lot of people. That's where we're going to see a lot of our action to start the race.
I absolutely agree. I think I mentioned something very similar in commentary. I was surprised how many of the big names didn't get out of Superpole, and then even if they did get into Superpole, didn't hook it up. And I'm going to add another one into that as well. Number 46, Salvador Tinio Arroyo, who really didn't get things hooked up at all in qualifying at the wheel of the number 46 Marco Steep Motorsport Chevrolet Camaro, because he starts in penultimate position on the grid. Loris Hazemans has now had 4 back-to-back wins in the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series at Elite 1 division. You look at the quality of the Elite 1 drivers, so to have won in Most, to have won in Venray, and to have won both races in the semi-finals at Hockenheim, and Loris comes into this weekend on a high, albeit, as we say, he's only qualified 6th quickest at the wheel of the number 50.
Yeah, that's true, but he also has to worry about that number 11 of Stanis Longin right in front of him, as well as Frederic Gabillon and Thomas Ferranado. They're going to put up a big challenge for him to try and get by. He's got to make sure that he can seal this championship out to make sure that there's no questions that he can win it. So he's got to pass all these guys, make sure that they stay behind him if he wants to win this. So it's he's got a challenge up ahead of him.
Zolder is an old school circuit. I absolutely love this circuit. It's a circuit of 2 halves, though, sort of turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, and up towards turn 4. Quite open, and from there you then head into the wooded section. It looks as though from a commentary perspective, correct me if I'm wrong, but as a driver there's never much rest, is there, around this track?
Yeah, especially towards the back half of the circuit. You know, the first 3 corners, you got a decent bit of runoff of the racetrack. You can make a few errors, but that's actually where you make up most of your time, because it's a bit deceiving going into turn 1. It looks like you can turn in early, but if you arc it out, you've got a lot more room to run off the racetrack. So, and the same goes for turn 2 and turn 3. But that's where it starts narrowing up a little bit, is turn 4. You don't have much runoff there. You start to get closed up. Then you go through 2 big chicanes. It's that's where you really the boys are separated from the men there.
We will wait for the Grand Marshal to utter those infamous words in a few moments' time, and then we'll come back and ask Myatt as to what his favourite corner is and what's the most technical. But here, I think, comes our Grand Marshal for the first race of the weekend.
Tire supplier, meneer Donkers, welkom op circuit Zolder.
Dank u, dank u. Ik ben Christophe Donkers, inderdaad van Banden Donkers. Wij zijn importeur voor het merk General Tire.
Being made by General Tires, who are the control suppliers for the 2019 NASCAR Whelen Euro Series. And once our General...
Start your engines!
And there we go, those infamous words are uttered, and 25 V8 engines spring into life, each one of them producing 400 brake horsepower. The circuit looks dry. I'll come back to Myatt Snyder again now, who joins me in the commentary box, and will be out racing in Elite 2 later on. Most technical corner for you, most rewarding corner for you?
I would have to say that the most technical corner, that's a hard one. I'd probably say the little mini chicane right before the front stretch, turns turns 15 and 16, because you have to set yourself up just right so that you can lay the power down. Because if you don't, if you're got your wheel cranked to the right, still trying to turn, getting out there, you're going to get sideways and you're going to lose a lot of time. Especially since you've got such a big front stretch, it sets up a lot of time to be gained there if you can get out of there. So the most rewarding corner I'd say is turn 5 and 6, because if you can hit it just right, then you can lay the power down way early and you pick up a lot of time. And it's so much fun because the curbs are huge there, so you feel like you're flying.
I've seen the pictures, not necessarily of you, but I've seen the pictures of many of the cars from last year and this year, all 4 wheels off. But it's fair to say getting it right is very rewarding. If you get it wrong, and as we saw for a few cars in qualifying as they head off on their final formation lap, get it wrong, the curbs are so high it damages the front of the car. Yeah,
especially if you hit it if you hit it dead on and the middle of your car is right in the middle of the curbs, you're basically going to turn into a skateboard going over that. So it's rough. You got to be careful. You got to really aim your car just right. But these are the best of the best of European stock car racing. So I'm sure they can handle the challenge.
So off they go on their final formation lap. Remember, this is just the first of 2 races for the Elite 1 drivers. They've got this race today. They've got another race that takes place later on tomorrow afternoon. The cars, however, have a lot of work to do, Myatt, because in stark contrast to the way it works over on your side of the Atlantic, the cars do all of the races. So even as a driver, you've got to make sure you hand the car over in one piece to your fellow competitor.
Yeah, absolutely. In the States, especially in the NASCAR Monster Energy Cup Series, these guys have cars that are specifically made for every racetrack they go to. So they can just, if they crash, they just pull out a backup car, and that one's built similar to how it is for that racetrack. But here, you just have one car. One car per driver. One car per every 2 drivers if they have a guy in Elite 1 and Elite 2. So if you crash, the team guys have to stay up all night fixing it. And sometimes, we saw the Elite 2 driver for Stinus Longin. He crashed pretty hard in the final practice yesterday, and they had to stay up all night fixing everything. So no telling how badly it was damaged, but I saw that a lot of the bodywork was replaced. So it makes for a big challenge to make sure that both drivers stay out of the bollards.
Absolutely, it can affect not just your championship if you crash it can affect your teammates as well. And you look at what Hendricks have done this year with Giorgio Maggi and of course Loris Hazemans. They have had a very consistent season. Each time the car's largely been handed over in one piece. There's been a few little technical issues with a blown engine, but even then the team came and turned the car around, got it back out for the next race. It's a real team sport, motorsport. So they're on their final formation lap. The call will now be given from race control to get themselves into 2x2 order, bumper to bumper with the car ahead of you or behind you, door handle to door handle with the car either to your left or your right, depending on which side of the grid you are on. And 4,000 revs in first gear was the instruction given, wasn't it, by Philippe Gaudet, the race director, yesterday?
Yes, that was the instruction given. However, most of the time the drivers don't follow that. They're going to bump it up a little bit, maybe 4,500 RPM. As a race car driver, you always are pushing the envelope just that little bit.
Absolutely. There will be 2 formation laps, so we gather. So they will get a second formation lap to try and build the temperature. And as you were saying, I think for Superpole, very difficult to get the heat in the tyres. And on what is quite an autumnal day out there, isn't it? This second formation lap just gives the driver a bit more chance to build the heat in the tyre, build the heat into the brake as well, which then radiates out to further bring the tyre pressures up.
Yeah, for all the people watching back in America, I don't know if you're watching from Charlotte, North Carolina, or wherever you're watching, but in Charlotte, we're having a huge heat wave right now. Like, it was almost 95 degrees Fahrenheit when I left, so that's probably, 40 degrees Celsius. And I came here, and it's probably about 45 degrees Fahrenheit out, about 10 degrees Celsius. So it's been a very cold day. So you got to really work to get heat in the tires, and plus also working against them. If you were paying attention, the sharp hairpin at the very edge of the track, turn 12, it looked like it had some dirt in it. So the drivers have to clean their tires, heat them up, as well as clean the racetrack.
Yeah, I spotted that. You could just sort of see the dust, couldn't you? Almost the brown dust just going into the air there. So the driver's still working overtime to try and heat these tyres up. Remember, Tomo Ferrando is a former Elite 2 champion. He sits there on pole position at the wheel of the number 27 car. He was Elite 2 champion. It was a while ago now, 2017. He was the Elite 2 champion, stepped up to Elite 1. It's his first pole position since stepping up to the Elite 1 division. He has not, however, as yet had a win in the Elite 1 division. His best results of the season came earlier on this year at Most, where he finished in 4th position in race number 2, but he managed to step onto the podium in race number 1, so he's had a 3rd at Most. He also had a 3rd last time out at Hockenheim as well, so 2 podiums so far this year. Are we going to see him a step higher? Might we see him possibly on the top step for round 12 of the championship? We just saw briefly the car that will start off the back of the grid, Dario Carzo driving the number 8 car. Watch out for Dario, he's one of a few drivers that is in the running for the Challenger Trophy, which is for bronze and silver graded drivers that enter the Elite 1 series. That certainly looks so it's probably going to go the way of Henry Tumala, the Finnish driver. As we say, it's double points in this race and in the next race as well that we'll see tomorrow. And therefore it is all still to play out, because Kenko Miura, Dario Carzo and Mauro Drioni, 2nd, 3rd and 4th in the Challenger standings, are all separated by just literally single points or so. So this is the point of the circuit now, Mike, where they get themselves into 2x2 order. You'll be well used to this, but for European racing, not being able to break out of those 2 lines until you've passed the control line is something very different for European racers.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, in the States, almost all racing does 2x2 shootout style. And you get a restart box, and here they've tried as best they can to recreate that. So it's very similar to how we do it in the States, where the leader can only fire in the box, but on the initial start they go on the green flag. So you're just sitting there in line trying to anticipate when the green is. And unfortunately here there's a little bit of an advantage, because all the tracks have green start lights, so rather than trying to look for a tiny waving flag, you can see green lights, and that's when you know that you can go.
And what you need to do is then hope that everybody around you goes at the same time as well, and that you're not compromised by a slower car ahead and not being able to break out of the line. So here we go then, buckle up everybody, we're about to go green for the first time this weekend in the Elite 1 division of the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series. It's finals weekend, it's Circuit Zolder, it's championships up for grabs, and this weekend we will know who is going to be the champion of the Elite 1 division. Tomo Ferrando on pole position, Fred Gabion alongside, the lights go out, they charge their way up towards turn 1 for the first time. Remain in the edge, already jinking out of the queue to try and sneak up the inside of Mark Guzan's locked break from Iannetta. There's a little bit of contact. Stinis Longjing turns around. Fred Gabion, Romain Iannetta gets a turn round, and then the secondary contractors, 3rd contractors, and the Villarino gets caught up. Henry Tuamala gets caught up. Nicola Rocca is involved as well. All of the front runners in the championship all involved in a first corner incident, and that is not the way we wanted to start it. It has, however, helped Tomo Ferrando take up the lead of the race. Gianmarco Ercoli, another former Elite 2 champion, is through into 2nd, but I do fear, Mike Snyder, we're going to have a safety car.
Oh, without a doubt, yeah. There's cars in the wall. Straight away, we have controversy on the first lap. That was it was an aggressive move to start with, and it looks like poor Nicola Rocco is destroyed, and we've already got another crash too. Yeah, a lot of contact to start with. It's been a crazy first lap. You'll have that when it's such a difficult corner in turn 1. It's a bit off camber, so it kind of pushes you out. So and there we see the 2 car pretty destroyed. So it's straight away we have a lot of controversy to start with. It's going to hurt Nicola Rocco's championship hopes.
It is, yeah. There's Fred Gabion, the battered car, trying to limp its way back round. There's Stinis Longjing, just dust coming from the back end of his car. He was involved as well. We saw the damage to the front end of the number 2, which is Kenko Miura's car, the Japanese driver who commutes to every single European round of the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series. He gets the air miles in. So car over the start-finish line. It is Tomo Ferrando that will lead as we head under safety car here. Not unsurprisingly, the safety car flags now coming out as Tomo Ferrando heads over the start-finish line. Gianmarco Ercoli in 2nd. And Stinis Longjing, despite getting caught up in that sort of initial incident, I think there was a little bit of contact between Stinis Longjing and the back end of Fred Gabion, which spun Fred Gabion round. Stinis Longjing wasn't overly delayed there, Mike Snyder, by the look of things. He sits there in 3rd, but a little bit of damage to the front corner of his car.
Yeah, it's straight away. We've got a big shuffle in the championship order. We've got Stinis Longjing in 3rd. He is the highest running championship order guy. and I can't quite see. Loris Haseman is all the way back in 9th, so he's got some work to do if he wants to gain some ground on Nicola Rocco, because by the looks of Nicola's car, he may be out of the race.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks as though there's sort of front and certainly rear damage to Nicola Rocco's car, so that has big implications for his aspirations to claim the championship. Ander Villarino limping back into the pit lane, Salvador Tinio Arroyo limping back into the pit lane, Kenko Miura limping back into the pit lane, and clambering out of his stricken car is Nicola Rocca. He is going to be desperately disappointed with that. You can see the tail end of the number 24 PK Carsport Chevy has borne the brunt of the impact, and it was sort of one of those typical first corner incidents, Myatt, when it comes to road racing, is that there's an incident ahead, there's then a chain reaction further back, and the further back you go, the less time every other subsequent car has to react, and the more cars get involved. Yeah, well, in stock car racing, unlike, Formula cars or GT cars, the bodies are quite big, so it's hard to really see through what's in front of you. So a lot of guys slow down, and it's a chain reaction, like you said. So people are braking later and later and later as they see it. So it's just a chain reaction. People brake late, and then they get into each other, and it just causes more and more spins. Do you know what I have we might have a bit of reordering here, of course, as well, but what I have spotted is running 4th on the road at the moment on the safety car is the car that started 15th. Alexander Graf, the Swedish driver. I'm not sure whether he closed his eyes and just got it right, or whether he was just very fortunate. I suspect it was the latter, but from 15th up to 4th with no visible contact on the car as well, or damage, so he's managed to swerve around everything. Well, sometimes that works. Sometimes you catch a lucky break, and holes open up for you. I can think of a few times in some truck races where I've gotten some lucky breaks and have been able to pass multiple guys at the same time, and that's the kind of stuff that you live for as a race car driver, is just being able to. You get this sense of power that you're passing by all these people, and that you're going to have a good day. So a good day for Alexander Graf, but a bad day for a lot of people. Yeah, bad day for that man there, Nicola Rocca, who is out of the car. We also just saw the 2 cars in the pit lane as well, and I could see that out of his car is Kenko Miura. So Kenko was at the side of the car. He's disappeared into the garage now, and also out of his car on the left-hand side of the screen. You can still see with the crash helmet still on, so maybe hopeful that they might be able to do something. He can salvage a few points from this one. Is Salvador Tinio Arroyo. So safety car leading the pack round. This was scheduled to be an 18-lap race. We do have the facility to go green, white, checkered should we wish. More cars limping into the pit lane on this lap. Number 7, Martin Dubeck, heads down pit road as well. There is his car now. We can just see being brought into the pit lane. That's the Hendricks Motorsport squad. Now, Martin is a busy old driver. He races in both Elite 1 and Elite 2. And when it comes to, I know these are much shorter races than you would have in America, but bearing in mind some of the circuits that we race at and the lack of rest that you have as a driver and how physical these cars is. Martin Dubeck racing in 4 races over the course of the weekend, that must be hard work. Yeah, absolutely. Considering that, there's not very much of a big break in between races. And, for him, he's got his team has to, he has to be careful because, of course, his car is going to be used in both the Elite 1 and the Elite 2 race. Yep. So he's got to be careful to not damage his car or avoid contact as much as possible, because he's got to carry that car over right away to the next race. So he is in the pit lane. We can see that of the championship contenders, Alan Day is still out there. So you look at the damage to the front end of the 23 car of Henry Tuamala. Well, he is going to be 23 car. That was actually Jacques Villeneuve. Oh, right, I was looking at the white one with the green and the blue flashes. Henry Tuamala, who leads the Challenger Trophy, so he's desperate to try and stay out there. Into the pit lane came Ander Villarino. He's back out now as well. We can see the bike taking out the front end of his car. Yeah, unfortunately, it looks like he was maybe pushed into somebody, and that kind of crunched up his right front fender. So, fortunately, there's not very much in terms of aero on these cars. And there you see Nicola Rocco's car getting loaded onto a flatbed. He'll have it taken back. Looks like, for a second, I thought his left rear tire there, as you can see on the back, was completely off the car, but the rear end looks completely sideways. So that car is just absolutely junked. It's unfortunate for him. Yeah, I mean, that's the second time that PK Carsport have had to repair the back end of a car this weekend, because you were talking about earlier on what happened to the number 11 in free practice yesterday, where Niels Albert, the double former world cyclocross champion who drives that number 11 car in Elite 2, put it into the barriers in free practice yesterday. So it was a sort of similar amount of damage to the back of the number 11 car. So
So cycling, as in bicycling?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's quite a change from I guess sports to motorsports. So, but to each their own, I suppose.
Oh, absolutely. Well, he started in BMX and then went on to claim 2009-2012 World Cyclocross Championships before he had to retire due to a heart condition. So he's had to work quite hard here to even get his race license, because of course, when you're a racing driver and with an issue, he's had to have a stressed ECG to be able to even gain his license. So it's great to see Niels Albert out there. So still under safety car here. The laps sort of starting to continue to tick away as they come over the start-finish line. 3 laps now completed. Tomo Ferrando leads on the road. We've now had the reordering taking place. Mark Goossens lines up in the pack alongside him. Let's just have a quick look at the car you're talking about. Right, yeah, there's Jacques Villeneuve with all the damage to his. I was looking at the 23 as well, and look at the amount of damage to that number 23 car. And it's not attracted the attention of the officials at the moment, but they will be keeping an eye on that, I would have thought.
Yeah, of course. These bodies here in the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series, they're made out of fiberglass, and they're held up by these tiny little metal braces. So any sort of contact is going to bend up that bodywork, and fiberglass especially just crunches and breaks. It doesn't bend like metal does. So you see contact in the NASCAR Monster Energy Cup Series, and the bodywork gets all crumpled up, but it doesn't really break. It maybe tears in a few places, but that's about it. Here, the fiberglass just snaps once it gets any sort of contact. So that's why you see some crazy looks for these guys.
and the big front end that we have on, whether it be a Chevy or whether it be a Ford, they're quite big front ends. When you then end up with lots of damage to the front end, it's not overly aerodynamic then, is it? And certainly looking at the 23, the way the bodywork is raised up on that right-hand side, that's going to affect the ability of Henry Tourmaline to be able to see right-handed apexes, I would have thought.
Yeah, of course. So his visibility is going to be limited. He's going to get a lot more air underneath the car, which is never good for speed. So it's going to affect him quite a lot. And you look at the 7 there, Martin Dubeck, looks like he lost his left front fender and his hood. So hopefully it doesn't rain, because he might be sucking a little bit of water in.
It looks a bit like the condition of some of the cars looks a little bit like when you get to the end of a Martinsville race or something like that, doesn't it, already?
Yeah, actually, ironically enough, this weekend is the Martinsville Late Model Stock Race, which is I've run that race every year since 2013. So it's my first race. It's first race ever since I've been away from that. So
I saw somebody posting on social media that you weren't there. Who stepped into the car?
Actually, my personal car is not physically there, but the guy who has always helped me up with setup and driving advice, Jamie Cottle, as well as his brother who did crew chiefing for the longest time, Jeff Cottle, they are there racing. And it's probably been, I don't know, 3 or 4 years since Jamie has raced at the Martinsville race. He got wrecked pretty hard last time, and that kind of put him out for a while. But he's going back. He's running actually my cousin Jay Hedgecock's race car. So it's going to be an interesting race. I believe they race tonight, probably 5 or 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and look for it to be a good race. Yeah, they actually broadcasted it on MRN last year, so I'm hoping that they do that again.
I'll be able to catch up on it later on. We wish them the best of luck either way, don't we? So reordering still taking place. The cars are about to head for the 4th time over the start-finish line already. Now remember, it is scheduled to be an 18-lap race, so we've still got hopefully plenty of racing to come. Hopefully it will be slightly less fraught than it was at the first attempt. The driver's still working hard though, even whilst we've got cooler conditions now. When the hot weather is there, as it was in Most, where track temperature was 44 degrees C, something like that when we're in Most. It's cooler here, so the driver's overheating isn't going to be a problem, but what you do need to do is work ever harder to keep the temperature in the tyres in the cooler conditions.
Yeah, of course. And interestingly, looks like Hesmans has gained a couple spots. He was listed in 9th before this caution, but now he's back up to 5th. So that means that the challenge is back on for Stinus Longin. He's got to make sure he gets to the front and keeps Hesmans behind him.
I couldn't see any obvious signs of damage to Loris Hazeman's car either, so it looks as though he was another one that sort of escaped the melee and the incident was unfolding ahead of him. So let's hope that everything is good to go. I did notice, though, the sister car to it of Martin Dubeck that we saw heading round without the bonnet, or the hood, as you would say, on it, is back in the pit lane as well. So clearly he's the Hendricks team thought they'd got it right, and there's clearly a few niggling issues with that particular car. So no indication as yet as to whether we are going to be going green shortly. We did see out of our commentary box window that Nicola Rocca's car has safely made it back through into pit lane, but there've been so many changes of order, Mike, with everything that was going on. It's going to just take a while, isn't it, to reorder the field?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, especially after a big crash like that, and you know, for Hezmans, he probably did the sensible thing and just started braking as soon as he saw people start spinning. So he avoided a lot of the contact, but probably lost a lot of spots initially. But yeah, one thing they do over here in the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series is that in their quote unquote playoffs, we have double points for the final 2 rounds. So that makes any good or bad event that happens to you, whether it be a win by a big margin or a loss by a big margin, amplified by double. So it's going to be a particularly bad day for Nicola Rocco. He's got to make it up big time tomorrow.
He really has, yeah. So I mean, we've got on the grid. We had 25 cars on the grid. Nicola Rocco didn't even complete the first full lap, so it is double points. He will score 3 points less than the last classified competitor. Well, out there and circulating at the moment, we have got, who else? We lost Luca Lasserre somewhere on that first lap, but we haven't seen any pictures at all of the number 33 Mishu Motors car. So the 2009-2010 champion also was involved at turn number 1, I ought to say, and so he's not come through. So Nicola Rocco at the moment would be, last classified finisher at the moment will be classified in 23rd. Nicola Rocco would score, what's that? That would be 28 points. So he would score 25 points for this at the moment. So even though he's out on the very first lap, 25 points, but that compares to 80 for the winner. So it's, you could argue he's left the best part of 60 points on the table.
Yeah, and I don't know what kind of a lead he had. I understand that the battle for Elite 1 is pretty close. So rather unfortunate for him that he didn't even, not even the first lap, not even the first quarter. So it was, it's unfortunate for him, but we'll see what he can do tomorrow. It'll be very wet tomorrow. We're supposed to have rain that was 3 times as hard as we've had all weekend tomorrow.
Oh, crumbs.
So it's going to be quite an interesting race.
I'd heard it was going to be wet. I hadn't looked at the forecast because you know, as an Englishman, every time I ever come to one of these events, they always take the mickey out of me for the weather that we have back home.
Well, as an Englishman, it's supposedly raining all the time over there.
Well, that's what everybody says, you see. That's what everybody says. And yeah, when I arrived at the circuit yesterday, it was pretty miserable. If you're saying it's due to be even worse and 3 times worse or whatever, then tomorrow it is going to be not very pleasant at all, I would have thought. Just how difficult I assume, you know, when it gets wet and therefore you're able to adjust the car to wet settings and you're running the wet tyre, it must be it's not easy to drive. It's a lot easier to drive than when it's damp and just greasy in that in-between area. Just talk us through that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the wetter it gets, the more smooth you have to be. You have to really, really be careful. But you know exactly kind of what you expect for the wet, whereas when it's slick and greasy, you know, there's spots where it may be greasy, but you can't exactly see it. Like when it's in the wet, when it's in like very heavy downpour, you can run off of the racing line because you know exactly where that is. That's where the grip is going to be, is off the racing line, because that rubber that's on the racing line makes it slick. So when it's greasy though, like there's spots where it may be grippy, where it may be slick. For instance, when we qualified this morning, there was a very, very slick spot coming through turn 3 where water ran down the racetrack, and if you tried to go full throttle through there, you would instantly go into a very hard to control slide. So you just have to be really careful depending on the conditions, and it's a lot of just being aware of what's going on around you.
I did spot you having a very nice slide coming out of where we're just looking now through the Gilles Villeneuve chicane in your qualifying sessions. Was that another area that was still a bit damp through there?
Yeah, absolutely. One thing you also have to be really careful of, and I was discovering as we went through, is that you have to be really careful on braking, because if you're too hard, you're going to lock them up, and then you're really not slowing down. So at that point, you're just trying to avoid, once you lock them up and it's hard to slow down, you're just trying to avoid anything that you can hit. So you just got to be really careful. Luckily, though, I believe the lineup is okay. The safety car will be in this lap.
Yeah, we gather that is the case. So the crowd are anticipating seeing some wheel-to-wheel pure racing now after the problems that befell several cars on the first lap. Say Nicola Rocco is out. We lost Luca Lasserre somewhere as well. Others limping around with damaged bodywork. So we'll see as to who is going to win this 12th race of the season for Elite 1. So let's have another go at it, shall we? Tomo Ferrando heading up towards the start-finish line. This time it will be Mark Goosen Goosens that lines up alongside him. We are about to get the race back underway. Nice and neat and tidy. Green flag flies and away we go. Good start from Stinis Longines, who is looking to try and squeeze himself alongside Mark Goosens up towards turn number 1. Earth they go. It's going to be Tomo Ferrando that leads. Can Stinis Longines hang on to second place, or Mark Goosens will get the inside line as they head up to Sterrebak Bucht, which is turn number 2, and is able to hang on to second place. From there they start to head out of Sterrebak Bucht, round through the very fast as it will be now turn 3 at Canal Bocht, and then in towards the turn 4 section. But already Tomo Ferrando looking to try and break away, and Stinis Longines, who was looking for second, is now down in 4th.
Yeah, tight battle for P2 through P4 so far. They are, you could throw a blanket over all of them. It's a really close race.
I gather there might be a stop and go penalty for the car that's currently in 3rd position, Romain Iniesta, for causing an incident. So we'll have to wait and see as to whether number 88 car dives to the pit lane. There is Jacques Villeneuve heading in towards the section of the circuit that's named after his father, following that awful day here on 1982. It's his first visit to this circuit, and so far the race hasn't quite gone to plan, with damage for him and several other cars in it. He's still out there and in the race, though, which is more than can be said for the likes of Nicola Rocca and Luca Lasser, who were retirements very early on in this one. Tomo Ferrando leads the race. Mark Goosens in 2nd, Romain Iniesta in 3rd. 4th is Stinis Longines. Gianmarco Ercoli at the wheel of the Racers Motorsport Ford sitting there in 4th place and looking to see whether he might be able to get a run here, actually heading up towards the Jackie Ickx chicane. Has he got a run on Stinis Longines? No, he hasn't. The number 9, the black car with the orange doors to it, sits behind, and behind Gianmarco Ercoli is the championship leader Loris Hazemans.
Yeah, and one advantage for Stinis Longines, who's in P4 right now, is I believe that the race control has given the 88 a stop and go penalty, so he's going to have to serve that. He's going to have to serve that at some point, so that means it's a free position for it. And we got a big battle for the lead right here. It looks like Mark Goosens just takes Thomas Ferrando like it was nothing. He just flew by him.
He was very late on the brakes. Was it Ferrando had left the door open, but yeah, fair play. He saw him coming, didn't turn in. So Mark Goosens now takes up the lead of the race. Remember, Mark Goosens did have a win here, the only win for him and for Brax at this circuit. That came in 2017. It's his first return to the championship since Brands Hatch, but Tomo Ferrando is desperate for his first win in the Elite 1 division. In towards the braking area, shortcutting the chicane, there goes Mark Goosens. So he needs to be careful he doesn't gain an advantage. That allows Ferrando to come back at him as they head in towards the braking area for the Villeneuve chicane. Tomo Ferrando goes back into the lead of the race.
Yeah, and you would think that cutting that chicane, it looks like he locked his brake up there. You would think cutting that chicane would gain you some time, but it actually doesn't, because once you're on that paint, you can't lay the power down nearly as early as you would like to, whereas if you're on the racetrack, you can lay it down. So it's almost as much of a disadvantage as it is an advantage.
Just having a quick look, Tomo Ferrando leads the race and leads the junior trophy at this stage. That's for drivers aged under 25 in the Elite 1 Championship. And the leading driver that we've got in the Challenger Trophy at the moment, it looks as though it is Mauro Trione, is it, that sits there in 16th position, car number 31. Mauro Trione, the hugely likeable Swiss Italian. Up towards the braking area for the Jackie Ickx chicane come the leading train of cars over the start-finish line. This is lap number 8 that's about to be completed. Tomo Ferrando leads the race at the moment, and what is a Ford 1-2-3. The first of the Chevys is down in 4th.
Yeah, it's always a good day to see the Fords leading there. Yeah, so I always love to represent the blue oval here, and hopefully we can do that pretty well in Elite 2.
Mark Goosens in 2nd place snatched a break there, didn't he, heading up towards Sterrebak Bucht, which almost allowed Romain Iniesta to try and work his way through at the wheel of the Racing Engineering Ford, but it's still just the Brax machine ahead of the largely red and yellow Race Engineering Ford. It's still Stinis Longines sitting there in 4th place, Gianmarco Ercoli in 5th, Loris Hazemans driving sensibly, really, I would say, in what is currently 6th position, because he will be considering the championship. He might have Stinis Longines ahead of him in the race, but his main championship rival, Nicola Rocca, is out. So finishing in 6th position and not trying to overtake cars and maybe make a mistake or get involved in an incident is sort of, I think, driving with his head at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just looked at the points, and actually there's a pretty decent gap back to from Hazemans to Stinis Longines. So he's as long as Hazemans has an incident-free day, he should be okay. He doesn't really have to do anything because his biggest rival, Nicola Rocco, is out of the race.
Yeah, Longines is 4th, so that would net him 66 points. Loris Hazemans would be on 62, and there is Romain Iniesta heading in towards the pit lane. We said the number 88 had got a drive-through for causing a collision, so that now allows Stinis Longines maybe to see what he might be able to do. It's Fords 1 and 2. The first of the Chevys is there in 3rd. It's another Ford in 5th and in 4th and in 5th as well. Side by side further down through the order, that is Alan Day going absolutely side by side with Guillaume de Flandre, and it looks as though Guillaume de Flandre is going to get himself ahead of the reigning champion. So speeds begin to build. Just how rewarding is Kanalbok, that 3rd turn that we see in the distance the car's coming up to? Stinis Longines saying it's flat in the dry.
It is flat in the dry, but it was, like I said, very sketchy today in the wet because there was a big greasy spot. What we noticed here, though, is that Thomas Ferrando has actually built up a pretty decent lead over Mark Goossens, so stretching it out a little bit.
He is. It looks like Loris Hazemans, though, is coming under a bit of pressure from Alex Sedgwick, who had to shortcut the chicane there, but didn't really gain any advantage, as you suggested, as he had little choice but to leap over the curve. The top 4 breaking away. Hazemans sitting ahead of Alex Sedgwick, who's got Guillaume de Flandre and then Alan Day behind him. Dylan Derdala is not too far away in 9th place, and then Ulysse Delceau, the number 36 car in the hands of the Frenchman, sitting there down towards the bottom of the top 10. It looks as though Mark Goossens, though, he might have snatched a break up at turn 2 on the lap prior, but he's now starting to mount a challenge. Is he not again for the lead? It looks so gap first and second is closing up. It was 0.9 of a second. I suspect it will be slightly less than that when they come over the start-finish line. Yeah, what, a couple of car lengths between the pair of them?
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like, depending on the gap, though, there is only 8 laps left, so Mark Goossens has to start working soon to make sure that he catches up to Thomas Ferrando.
Just how difficult is it? I mean, I know you've not experienced in the full dry conditions yet, but how difficult is it to overtake around here?
Well, it's obviously now that the track is dry, you've got a lot more overtaking zones than you did in the wet. So I'm assuming that, you know, like we saw before when Mark passed Thomas in the second turn, that wouldn't have been an option in the wet. So the racetrack is opening up to these guys.
2 more cars headed down pit lane that I have just spotted, Francisco Cini and Dario Carzo, so not entirely sure as to whether they were for drive-through penalties potentially as well. Yet both of those having been given drive-through penalties by the officials. Thomas Ferrando saw his gap reduced to just 0.4 of a second last time through. Mark Goossens still working terribly hard to try and keep right up onto terms with the Cal Racing Ford that sits ahead of him. If those two start to slow each other up, don't rule out the fact that Stinis Longines will close in. He is doing anyway, and why? Because the last lap he posted was the fastest lap of the race we've had so far. 1 minute 41.177 was a quarter of a second quicker than Mark Goossens in second place, but was 0.6 of a second quicker than the race leader Thomas Ferrando. So the top 3 all getting closer to each other with 8 laps to go. Now the cars did the main qualifying session on wet tyres, which means that because you're limited to the amount of slick tyres that you can use, their slick tyres in this race have not had quite as much life taken out of them.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's key, is keeping life in the tyres. It looks like Thomas Ferrando has stretched out the gap a little bit. Mark Goossens getting challenged by Stinis Longines isn't going to help his case out any. And one thing you got to think about is that especially if you're Thomas Ferrando and you see Mark Goossens catching you, is okay, I'm not as fast as Mark Goossens. I've got to make myself as wide as I possibly can on the racetrack so that he can't pass me. Of course, you're only limited to 1 defensive move, so you've got to time it just right. But it looks like he is faster indeed right here.
He certainly is at the moment. Seems as though he's got a good car underneath him at this stage. Stinis Longines looking to try and apply the pressure to Mark Goossens, which is just allowing Thomas Ferrando in the race-leading car to break away. It's so unusual to see that white and red livery, number 78 of Brax this weekend. So used to seeing their cars blue over the course of the last few seasons in the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series. I have to remind myself as to who's driving it. In towards the braking area for the Villeneuve chicane. Thomas Ferrando, then the white and red car of Mark Goossens being hounded all of the time by Stinis Longines. Gianmarco Ercoli just that little bit further back in 4th position. Fastest lap of the race has now gone to Alex Sedgwick, has posted the fastest lap in the race. That's all important. Remember, fastest lap times from today give us the grid for tomorrow, Myatt.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series does is that rather than doing something like, inverting the field of finishers for tomorrow's race, they do it based off the fastest lap. So whoever runs the fastest lap will be on pole for tomorrow, and then they'll do the successive times afterwards, and that's where the lineup is based off of.
Yeah, 5 months out of a race car for Alex Sedgwick. He's suffering with a virus as well this weekend, so it's all sort of transpiring against him, but he's certainly out there and has got the pace at the moment. That's the blue car with the red and white flashes towards the tail end of your screen as again Stinus Longines. Whoa, you can see the correction mid-corner there as he saw the door start to close.
Yeah, he got a little bit loose there, and he wisely backed out of it rather than getting into Mark Goosen. So he's faster, and he's trying to get around him. He seems to catch up to him every single time, getting up to turn 1. So Mark Goosens is not getting any breaks.
Alex Sedgwick has no longer got the fastest lap of the race. That has now gone the way of the reigning champion, number 54, the Cal Racing Chevy of Alan Day, a 1:40.8. So that is, for the moment, going to net him pole position. He's also on another good lap again this time through. Here comes the yellow number 54 car. You can see it squirming around on the brakes as he closes up on the 90 car of Alex Sedgwick, who's still looking to try and put Loris Hazeman's, the championship leader, the number 50 Hendricks Ford, under pressure. We have 3 for the lead of the race, and Gianmarco Ercole sort of sitting there in 4th place, not really making an impression, I don't think. You see, lap time suggests no, he's just a shade slower than the cars ahead, so he's not gaining on them. He needs to be careful, though, he doesn't get caught by the likes of Loris Hazeman's and Alex Sedgwick behind, who were a little bit quicker than him last time.
Yeah, absolutely. But Alan Day is one of the best guys in the NASCAR Euro Series. He knows what he's doing. So you can see he exits a little bit lower there than both of them. That gives him a little bit better run out of there. So he's definitely getting every bit of a race car.
So in towards the braking area for the Jackie Hicks chicane. Lap number 13 is about to be completed. Tomo Ferrando with 1 1/4 seconds between himself and Mark Goosens behind. It certainly looks as though, as you say, Stinus Longines is the quicker of the two, but he just can't pick his way through. Mark Goosens using all of that experience to position the car where he needs it to be. As long as he gets cleanly off the corners, it makes it so difficult for the cars behind to try and gain the place. And through turn number 2 goes the cars that are fighting over 6th, 7th and 8th position. Alex Sedgwick, Alan Day, and then the Deck Sweat TF1 number 99 car, the Chevy of Guillaume de Flandre. And as they now start to build the speeds again out of turn number 4 in towards the braking area for, as you say, the most rewarding corner on the circuit, turn 5 and turn 6, the cleaner chicane, or little chicane as it literally translates, where you can get the car turned in and almost straight line it, can't you? If you get it right at turning, you can almost have a straight line over the curves. Yeah,
pretty much. And when you do that, you're basically hopping the left side wheels and then the right side wheels, so it feels a bit like a roller coaster. If you notice now, it looks like Thomas Ferrando has built up about a 1.6 second lead. So we saw Mark Goosens challenging earlier. Maybe he wore out his tires or heated them. There's a possibility that you can overheat your tires in stock cars. It's when you run them too hard, and maybe Mark Goosens did that. Now he's no longer challenging, and he's getting a lot of pressure from Stinus Longines.
Yeah, it looks as though the gap increased by another almost 0.4 towards 0.5 of a second last time through. So it's all going the right way as far as Tomo Ferrando is concerned. Heading in towards the final corner against Stinus Longines, really good on the brakes, heading in towards that part of the circuit to try and close the gap up on Mark Goosens, but as they come out of the corner, the gap stretches to about 3/4 of a car length in towards the braking area for Erst. We know that Stinus Longines is good through this part of the circuit. Mark Goosens just seems to be making sure he's doing enough at the moment, but he certainly is under pressure. Up towards turn number 2 there will go. If you were Stinus Longines, do you keep your powder dry and try and get the championship back on track, or do you attack?
I don't know. If I'm Stinus Longines, I know that I have a big gap back behind me, or I have a big gap to close up between him and Loris Hazeman's. So I'm going to attack. And you can see him trying to set up Mark Goosens the whole time. He tried to look a little bit wide to the outside of Mark Goosens and then tried to cut back inside, but got a little bit loose, so his move was a little bit ruined there. So he's trying his absolute best to set up Mark, but the car's just not going with it.
problem for Stinis Longchamp. If he tries something and it doesn't quite work, he might lose a spot to Gianmarco Oakley, and that then would put him under pressure from Loris Hasemans, his championship rival, and of course the championship leader, who is driving a sensible race here. He's kept his nose clean. He, I think, has realised that 4 back-to-back wins is good enough at this stage. It doesn't matter if I finish off the podium slots here. All the way through the gravel goes. That was Jacques Villeneuve all through the gravel. It looks as though Ulysse Delceau almost sort of got tangled up there as well. Last time through we had a new fastest lap of the race. Guess who? Jacques Villeneuve, 1 minute 40.518. That, Maya, now gives him pole.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's going to put Jacques in first, and that's going to put Alan Day in second, Alex Sedgwick in third. So it's going to be quite a shuffled lineup from what we see today.
It is. What amazes me is that we've got a chunk of damage to the front end of Jacques Villeneuve's car, and as you were saying, it means more air gets underneath and creates more drag, but doesn't seem to be affecting his lap times at this stage. What has happened on this lap is that Stinis Longchamp has fallen well and truly away from Mark Goossens and is now under pressure from number 9. Former Elite 2 champions go wheel to wheel there. Stinis Longchamp just ahead of Gianmarco Oakley, and now Oakley's looking for the inside line up towards turn number 2. Door closed though by Stinis Longchamp.
Yeah, that was an aggressive blocking maneuver, and it looked like they were down in some dirt right there, so that could have might make their tires a little bit unclean.
Into the pit lane comes Jacques Villeneuve on that lap. He's posted the fastest lap of the race, and I think he's probably now thinking, well, that will do for today. The car's a bit battered, but I'm rather surprised to see him head down pit road. Look at the battle for 3rd and 4th place once more. Stinis Longchamp under pressure from Gianmarco Oakley, who wants to try and make it a Ford 1-2-3 again at the moment, and now it's just allowed Loris Hasemans at the wheel of another Ford to begin to close in. So of the top 5 cars, Stinis Longchamp is the only Chevy that we've got. There are waved oil flags by the look of things because of debris in the circuit down at the Gilles Villeneuve chicane, the way things currently stand, as the cars thread their way through that part of the circuit. It only, as you were suggesting, is fiberglass bodywork, so if you run over it, unlike carbon fibre or if it's bits of steel that's on there, it shouldn't cause any damage to tyres, should it?
Yeah, for the most part it shouldn't, unless there's some very specific shape, which I doubt would happen. But there's also a lot of gravel on there. Yeah. That might hurt the tires a little bit. But if I'm Jacques Villeneuve, I'm thinking, okay, I just ran my fastest lap. It's probably not going to get any faster than that, because that one, the last fastest lap we saw was a 140.8 or 140.7, and he ran about 0.2 faster than that. So if I'm thinking as Jacques Villeneuve, I'm thinking, okay, my car I'm not going to really gain any positions. I'm not really that involved I'm not really that high up in the championship. I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna get my car fixed as soon as possible, and I'm gonna try and challenge for the second race. Because at that point, he's just really looking for a win.
And I suppose the point at which that fastest lap came, we are now at this stage 16 laps completed, so we should be going white flag next time through. The tyres are starting to just feel it a little bit more, and there are highly unlikely to be any more faster laps coming from anybody else to take the place away.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was kind of surprised when I first got here. The tyres seem to progressively gain time as we go through the race. But in the States, the tires are usually at their fastest in the first 3 laps. But here, you just seem to keep getting faster until maybe about 3 or 4 to go.
Mauro Trioni had been continuing to lead the Challenger Trophy at the wheel of the number 31 Cal Racing Chevy, but he's just come down pit road. I'm not sure whether that was for a drive-through penalty or whether there's a problem for the car. If it is a problem with the car or a drive-through, it will probably put the rather battered car of Henry Tourmala back into the lead of the Challenger Trophy, which would be quite remarkable, bearing in mind the amount of damage to the front end of that number 23 car following the incident at turn number 1. Jacques Villeneuve is back out, so maybe there was an issue with his car. There it is, the Go Fast Racing car of Jacques Villeneuve. You were talking about leaping over the curbs. Well, there we go.
Yeah, that was about as close to leaping as you could get. It looks like he about got every tire but the right rear tire off the ground there.
And it's good to see Go Fast Racing, who prepare cars on both sides of the Atlantic, coming and joining in the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series. It's over the start-finish line goes Tomo Ferrando. I think that is now 17 laps completed onto the last lap of the race. They will go. Tomo Ferrando at the moment, Myatt Snyder, on course for a win. And it's been a long time coming for him, this first win in the Elite 1 division.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure he's worked pretty hard to get there. And, former Elite 2 champion, like you said, and actually got his start racing at Bowman Gray, which is kind of crazy. Funny enough, the owner, going back to Villeneuve, the owner of Go Fast Racing, Archie, he's actually here this weekend to come check out the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series, as well as some NASCAR officials. So it's a pretty big weekend coming for the NASCAR Euro Series.
It's a big commitment as well, isn't it? Running cars on both sides of the Atlantic. Tomo Ferrando is now half a lap away from his first victory in the Elite One division. Remember, he stepped up to the Elite One division 3 years ago now. It's his third season in the Elite One division, having claimed top honours in the Elite 2 Championship back in 2017, I think it was. So he's about to come through and over the start-finish line before too much longer and grab the victory. Still got work to do, though. He's got to head up towards the very difficult hairpin coming up now of Boulder back booked, and he's back under pressure again from Mark Goossens, who has really come at him on the closing stages of this one. The two of them absolutely together. The Frenchman under pressure. He led by 0.8 of a second as they started the lap, so Goossens had been closing up. He gained half a second over him. Are we going to see the first victory snatched away from Tomo Ferrando in towards the braking area for the Jackie chicane? I thought he was a bit late on the brakes there, Myatt, but I think by the skin of his teeth, he's just going to do it. The checkered flag is waving.
It's a close race.
It's a very close race. Nothing in it in the end, but Tomo Ferrando comes over the start-finish line and secures top honours in round 12 of the Elite One division of the 2019 NASCAR Whelen Euro Series. Mark Goossens returns to the championship for the first time since June and finishes in second place. And Stinis Longjing keeps his championship hopes alive in third place. Took a while to get going, Myatt Snyder, with the incident at turn number 1, but we got through it.
Yeah, absolutely. That was honestly a close race. It looked like Mark realized that maybe he had worn out his tires a little bit and let them cool down for a little bit, so he was kind of backing up his spot, and it allowed him the challenge at the end, but just came up about a car length short.
It looks as though the number 23 car of Henry Tuamala is going to come over the start-finish line, and quite how he's done it, will claim victory in the Challenger Trophy. That battered car, which, as we said, had got all of the damage to the front end. The bodywork was up on the front right corner of it, obstructing his visibility, but the number 23 car comes over the start-finish line now, and I make it, that is 16th position overall for the Swede at the wheel of his Memphis racing car, and that will give him a win in the Challenger Trophy, Henry Tuamala, which means that is now his 8th win of the season, and it's going to put him in probably prime contention now to scoop up the Challenger Trophy at the end of the season. Nice to see, I think, that both Mark Goossens and Tomo Ferrando enjoyed that race, both sort of waving to the marshals and the fans as they head around the circuit, but I think respecting each other there.
Yeah, absolutely. Mark obviously is a very tenured guy, and all of racing. He's been around a while. Thomas is obviously a little bit newer. His last win was in Zolder in 2017, so it's good that he finally upgraded himself and moved on to winning Elite One, so probably has a good career ahead of him in the Elite One division.
And I suppose, Tomo is another one of those drivers that has been over and sampled racing on your side of the Atlantic. We saw him in the K&M Pro Series East back in 2018. So, it's great that these European drivers can experience what it's like on your side of the Atlantic, and vice versa as well, because it is a different style of racing, because they are different markets.
Yes, absolutely. And of course, the mentality of what racing is changes as you go over the Atlantic too. Here, it's very procedural. Everybody has their rules, whereas, in the States, we settle it out on the racetrack, talk about it amongst yourselves on pit road afterwards, and if you're not happy, then you just go and sort it out the next week on the racetrack. So, it's just a difference in mentality, but yeah, it's good that Thomas has showed that he can compete in both, and it's good that he got his first Elite One win.
And it's good that we will see on his first ever visit here at Zolder, Jacques Villeneuve, subject to official confirmation, will start from pole position for tomorrow's Elite One race. That's a story, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So it'll be, like I said, it'll be quite a shuffled order tomorrow. So we'll see some big names up there like Jacques Villeneuve, Alain Day, and Alex Sedgwick, and among others.
Your race coming up later on, you got through to Supole, you start 10th?
Yes, I start 10th. I believe the car is capable of top 5, so it'll be up to me to go and pick off some people to start with and roll some speed to the first couple corners and hopefully avoid any big crashes that happen.
It looks as though the team have got a little bit of work to do as well, because Ander Villarino was one of those that was caught up in that Turn 1 incident, so there's looks fairly cosmetic, so it doesn't look too bad.
Yeah, absolutely. We can actually, it's not shown on the camera right now, but we can see Ander rolling through, so looks like it may need a front bumper, maybe a right front fender, but that's all just, as you said, cosmetic, and hopefully can get fixed in the next next couple of hours.
Okay, so I mean, you hang around by all means while we chat to our runner who'll be heading to victory lane. But if you want to head back to the team so you can understand what's going on with the car room, we'll say thank you for joining us, Mike Snyder, in the commentary box, and good luck for your race later on.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure, and hopefully I can come to you and talk to you from victory lane today.
Let's hope so. There we go. Myatt Snyder, one of our fantastically talented Elite 2 rookies in the series, who is going to be taking part in the race later on. Thanks, Myatt. He will head back down to the other side of the circuit and catch up with the racing engineering team. We can see their two cars, the number 48, which is Myatt's car, at the very front of the shot, and the sister car to it, the 88 of Romain Iniesta, just being pushed backwards into the garages. So already, even though the cars have only just finished the race, the teams will already be assessing the damage. There will be the usual technical checks that they're doing by the officials, but once they've been sort of signed off out of Parc Fermé, then they will be able to get repairs sorted. They're being pushed into the garages. The car that potentially, subject to official confirmation, will be starting from pole position in tomorrow's race. What a story. His first visit to Zolder, Jacques Villeneuve, and what must be a difficult weekend for him, and I think we'll leave that there. But what a story that he is potentially going to be starting from pole position. So the car's heading back down into the garages. The winning car of Tomo Ferrando, the Cal Racing Ford Mustang, will head to victory lane, and hopefully we can give you a full rundown of the order before we then maybe catch up with our race winner down there in victory lane. So Tomo Ferrando claims the win by just a tenth of a second in the end after the 18 laps of this first Elite 1 race of the weekend. Second was number 78, which was Mark Goossens for Brax Racing, making the Ford 1-2. And Stinis Longines keeps his championship hopes alive, finishing in third position. Fourth was number 9 for Racers Motorsport, another Ford, Gianmarco Ercoli, and completing the top 5 is the championship leader, number 50, Loris Haseman. Sixth is the reigning champion, number 54, Alan Day. Seventh is number 90, Alex Sedgwick, ahead of Guillaume de Flandre, Dylan Dardala, and Ander Villarino, who wraps up the top 10, having started 19th. So 9 places gained there could potentially give him the extra 8 points this weekend for the most places gained. In 11th place was number 36, Ulysse Del. So it was Sebastian Bleekemolen in 12th place, ahead of Romain Iniesta and Jacques Villeneuve, 13th and 14th. Dario Carzo is now rather being shown in the lead of the Challenger Trophy, the number 8 car. So that has, I'd imagine, looking at the lap time, shuffled round on the very final lap by the look of things. Yeah, it was. Yeah, 144.6 from Dario Carzo meant that he was able to get through and past of Henry Tuamala on that final lap. So number 8, Dario Carzo, heading towards the top step of the podium for the Challenger Trophy. Henry Tuamala in 16th, Francisco Cini in 17th, head of Mauro Trioni in 18th position. Alexander Graf had problems late on. Salvador Tinio Arroyo will be classified in 20th position, ahead of Martin Dubek, Kenko Mura and Fred Gabian, who all had issues. And remember, in 24th and 25th, that was cars that had problems at the very start of the race, Nicola Rocca and Luca Lasser. But there are the emotions. You can see what that win means to Tomo Ferrando. His first pole position in the Elite 1 division of the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series earlier on today, and he has backed it up with a victory in the first of our Elite 1 races. That nets him, of course, 80 championship points, which means that is going to substantively close the gap on those ahead of him. And you never know, depending on what goes on tomorrow, it may well put him right into contention for the overall championship. So he was saying to me earlier on, when I had a quick chat to him, sort of the 90 or 60-second interviews that we do after the qualifying sessions, I had a quick chat to him, and he did say, I just can't stop smiling, Mark. I can't stop smiling with his first pole position. Well, if he was smiling after his first pole, he is certainly going to be smiling after his first win in the Elite 1 division of the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series. He's had plenty of wins over his career, don't get me wrong. He's got 12 wins in the Elite 2 division, so he will be really pleased to grab his first victory. I don't think we're going to be able to hear from Tomo Ferrando in victory lane, which is an enormous shame, but do look on our social media, on Twitter, on Facebook and on Instagram. So we will certainly gauge some reaction from the top 3, from Tomo Ferrando, from Mark Goossens and from Stinis Longines. We'll also get a chat to Dario Carzo as well. But I think we are going to try, I gather, just a quick update, we are going to see whether we might be able to grab a quick word with Tomo Ferrando. So we'll hang on for the moment with the stream and see whether we can grab a quick word with Tomo Ferrando before we can... I think the problem is for Tom, he's still trying to fight his way through the crowds. There's so many people wanting to congratulate Tomo Ferrando on his first win. It's just taking him a while to get to where he needs to be, but our cameraman is in position. I think Andre is in position, and we are keeping our fingers crossed that rather than have to do it solely via social media, we can gauge some reaction whilst the adrenaline is still pumping, and well, the smile is going to be on his face for the rest of the day, and if not the rest of the weekend for Tomo Ferrando. So there we go. Let's have a chat to the race winner.
Tomo, your first ever Elite 1 division win, how do you feel?
Amazing. How can I describe the feeling? It's just amazing. We had some problem yesterday during the practice, and now we're winning the race and doing the pole. So I'm really, really happy with what the team does on the track, and I'm really happy of my team, my sponsor, and everyone around me, because without them I wouldn't be here. So thank you very much. It's just amazing.
All right, thank you very much. Your Elite 1 winner, Tomo Ferrando.
Congratulations to Tomo Ferrando. He will be hugely pleased with that, and as we say, so will the team as well. Cal Racing that he's moved to for the sort of latter part of this season, and certainly it is working beautifully well for him. So that's it for the moment for Elite 1. We've got more racing coming up later on this afternoon here at Circuit Zolder. The Elite 2 race is scheduled for its first race of the weekend at 16:50. Central European summertime. If you're watching over in the States, thanks for joining us. It is 10:50 a.m. The stream goes live Eastern Standard Time. So from Circuit Zolder, that's all for the moment. Join us later on today for Elite 2. Until then, goodbye. Good morning and welcome to Autodromo di Franciacorta. For round 6 of the 2000. Welcome to Circuit Zolder for the final round. The lights go out, the green flag flies. It's all very tight up towards turn 1. Oh, it's close and there's contact. They're side by side. When the checkered flag falls and the race is done, there's always time for celebrations.